All right. Welcome to the Complete Human Performance Podcast. Today, I am your host. I'm back after about a 2-year absence of hosting. I am Anthony D'Orazio, and today I am joined by my fellow CHP coaches, Justin Jones and Mike Thompson. Justin, Mike, welcome aboard.
What's up, man?
Good to be here.
So today we are discussing how to approach when you're busy. I think this is something everyone that's listening to this podcast can definitely relate to. We all have lives outside of training. I know it's hard to believe as coaches that our clients would have anything other than training to do. But we do understand that occasionally you have other outside life events and activities that take time away from training or the time you might be able to train for. So we wanted to get into our approaches, our thoughts on how to deal with that. So to start that off, let's go with Justin. Let's start with sort of I don't want to say you're like average person, but someone that maybe is not quite at a high competitive level, kind of your average client that we run into. This is probably most of our client base. They're not necessarily looking to compete in anything super, maybe they have some events, but they're not, super hardcore about them, and they're not maybe kind of not that close to those events. Justin, we'll start with you. What are your general approaches and thoughts for those clients?
Well, it depends on what they come to me with. A lot of people are very motivated at the start, and so it's pretty seamless to get into training. And then as you get in the first few weeks, they might start to mention, oh, like I'm really busy, I had this go on or whatever. And so I find I kind of start with I start early on with this as well, but we revisit it like priorities wise. You mentioned they might not be super serious about it. So my biggest thing is making sure that we make intentional decisions on training and the rest of their life decisions instead of aiming to train like somebody who has no other responsibilities and then making sacrifices on the margins accidentally and missing sessions here and there because you tried to plan for a perfect life you didn't have. So maybe not a training answer, but my first thing is always where does training fit in their life priorities?
Yeah, and that's huge for me too. And I like the way you phrase that because you have to like look at like stress isn't just training, right? Like we can get all nerdy about the training stress stuff later, but stress is everything. And so even if someone is super motivated, if they've got, young kids and they're working 60, 70 hours a week and they're not sleeping super great, maybe the perfect program on paper is not really the perfect program for them. And so we have to look at the whole system as a whole rather than just, okay, well, you want to do this XYZ event. Here's generally what works. Let's, kind of customize it a little bit for you and go like that. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that I agree with both statements. The analogy I've used, and I've told you guys this analogy, is that I use this with clients, is that I always view training as part of, it's like you're making a holiday dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, something like that. And you've got, 5, 6 dishes going at any one time, trying to get them all ready at the same time. And when you're doing that, naturally, some things are maybe have your main focus, and that's what you're mostly focused on at that point in time. They're on the front burner. And other things you got simmering in the back, right? Or they're just they're in the oven at like 125, just staying warm. Um, and I think life is very much like that. There are times where training can be front and center. It's you are the 22-year-old that is on holiday break, and you don't have anything other than do than to work a couple hours a week and maybe train. So you're living the training dream. And other times you are a single parent with multiple children, and you have to work multiple jobs. At that point, training is probably very much on the back burner. And so I think to both your points, trying to figure out for any given client or any given person what is most important in their life at that moment in time, and how does training fit into that, and what they want to get out of training and what will most benefit them. Right. So, Justin, let's go back to you. What kind of questions are you usually asking your clients to try and get at some of these things?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get a good idea of what they have going on in their lives as far as all of the stress that they have. So that's a pretty standard part of the onboarding process, right? Just understanding what they've got going on. And then I like to kind of throw it back at them a lot of the time just to see where their head's at. So if they come to me and they're like, hey, like, I'm sorry I missed a session. I had all this other stuff going on, right? Um, I'll first, you know, normalize that everybody has things going on, even me. I'm even in a period, I'm actually working with Mike right now from a programming perspective, just because I've got so much on my plate. I wanted to kind of offload that. So I'll try to normalize that first and then kind of ask them, like, hey, is this a recurring thing week to week? Is this a one off? Kind of taking notes on my end. Is it the type of person who always has one offs, or is it truly a one off and then we're back to the game plan? And then, say it's a recurring thing, then, okay, what do you want to do about this? Would you like to, for instance, say it's a family thing, right? Is this something that you want to be able to do every Thursday? Do we move training around? Because we can totally do that. Or do you want to take the ball in your court and kind of figure out, maybe it was a time management thing? Some people really are like, hey, I could have probably done this earlier and I'd like to try that next week. So I like to give them options so they can choose what they want to do. And then obviously, as time iterates, then we see, is what they thought they could do realistic or not, and then we can kind of hone in on what's working for them over a few weeks time frame.
Yeah, that's huge, and that's pretty much exactly the same thing I do when I bring somebody in. I have a lot of almost like screening questions, rating different aspects of their life, priorities, and just things like how overall stress levels. Where's it coming from? What's your sleep like? How are there things we can do to improve that? Is it a chronic issue? It is just kind of something that's going on right now, kind of like you said, Justin. And I think the biggest thing I'm trying to understand with someone new is like, where does training fit into their life, and like, why do they even care? Like, why are we even doing this in the first place, right? Like, you're signing up for coaching, you're committing to something, you're paying money toward it. So obviously there is a priority there, but that doesn't mean it's like their number one thing. And so I'm always telling clients too, like, when we're training, like, we're not professional athletes. I don't generally work with professional athletes. I work with people who have to be in shape for their jobs, which we'll talk about later, but that's a different sort of thing. And so, like, helping them understand, and myself understanding through that process, why this is important to them, whatever their goal is, how that makes the rest of their life better, rather than just being one more thing on their plate because their buddy made them sign up for a Tough Mudder and they feel overwhelmed or something, like something like that. Like, how do we dig in? How do we understand, like, what kind of person is this? Why is this important? Why is achieving this important? No one can define that for anyone else. And so that's something as a coach I try to understand. And then when we're working through any potential scheduling obstacles or, motivation issues down the line, we can always revisit that because it changes over time. Like, the reason I train now is radically different than the reason I changed 5 years ago. And I expect 5 years from now, it's going to be different then. So you have to constantly sort of reevaluate that to keep your head in the game and, set appropriate expectations of yourself.
How much do you guys, so I'm going to pick up on that point real quick, Mike. How much do you guys feel like you guys have to dig into what people actually want when you work with clients? Because this is something I've learned, is that, a client comes to you and they're like, oh, I want to train for X, whatever X may be. And you go, okay, talk to them. It's like, oh, they want to train for X. And then you start, you built a program, you start, the first week goes by, and you notice like they start doing other stuff. They're not quite doing what you want. And then you realize, well, they mentioned also doing the why. And it seems like they really want it, like what they really want to do is why, right? How often do you find that you have to pay attention to like the sort of like, I don't want to say like the indirect feedback, I guess, like the sort of like where clients can't necessarily verbalize what they actually want. Either one of you can take that one.
That's tough. I try to do as much as I can on the front end, and try to get it. Like, the easy example there is like weight loss, right? Like, everybody's like, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds, I want to lose 30 pounds, whatever. Okay. I'm always, my pushback to that, like, the number may be significant and it matters and it's something to track, but it's like, why? Who told you that number? Why is that?
Yeah.
What does that matter? Are you after, like, you need to weigh a certain amount on the scale for, say, the military or something like that? Or is it more about you want to look and feel a certain way? And if so, what is that look and feeling? And 9 times out of 10, it's like, oh, I never thought about that. I actually care more about, looking and feeling a certain way. So same thing with performance. Like, oh, I want to run, this, 3:30 marathon or whatever. Like, cool, great. Why? Who cares? What if you come in at 3:33?
Yeah.
Like what are we actually after here? And then that can help inform the programming decisions and helps me as a coach like push people a little harder or potentially kind of back off a little bit, if things aren't exactly 100% adherent. It's like, well, we're achieving the goal. This is making your life better right now. You don't care as much about this specific metric. Do we need to push harder? I always ask that question. Like, I was like, do we need to push harder? Do we actually need to push harder, or are you getting what you want? And if they're getting what they want, like, cool. I can't decide that for someone.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of. I think I was telling a friend this actually the other day. AI, everybody's like AI is going to take people's jobs. I think humans in general have a hard time verbalizing things, and one of the beautiful things about a professional or a coach is that you can read between the lines and understand what someone says. And so, my joke was until they can make ChatGPT so good at reading between the lines, I think everybody's fine. But yeah, more realistically, I think it's probably a mix of people struggle to articulate uh, what their goal is, but also things like iterate as you start training. So I have a lot of people that will start for one thing, but 3 4 weeks in, they're really having fun with something else. So like I just had somebody, hey, I want to do a half marathon, and I just kind of want to maintain my strength. But like 6 weeks in, they were like, hey, actually, I would love to hit these specific numbers as well. You know what I mean? And I don't think that they always wanted to hit those numbers, but it was just, you get into training, you're having fun, and then you realize, oh, this would be really cool too. Like maybe we could do that. And then, um, so I think that's part of it as well. And I think it's just this constant like feedback mechanism from a coaching perspective of always trying to see how people are iterating, because training is physical, but it's also making changes to your brain, and it's an emotional process too. You're putting in a lot of effort. And so those things do progress as you progress as an athlete.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. I think I will say that one of the things you mentioned, Justin, is that people have trouble articulating what they like to do, and I would generally agree with that. I think it's hard as someone that generally doesn't have trouble articulating what they want. My wife tells me that she's like, and I think it comes into play with regards to being able to parse different parts of your life. And so I think my wife tells me I'm good at that. I remember when I trained to do a bodybuilding show and I did a half marathon the following day. There was a guy in my gym that I was old school bodybuilder guy. I think people would know who he is, but doesn't matter. And he was like, "Why are you doing it?" I was like, "Well, because it's good publicity for CHP." And that was the extent. Like that was literally why I was doing it. Like there wasn't anything deeper. Like I wasn't beaten as a child. Like there was no deeper motivation. Like that was literally the only reason. And he's like, "But why?" I'm like, "What do you mean why? This is the reason. Like I don't have more motivation than this." Um, so I think it's hard when some people are able to articulate that very well, and if you're one of those people, it can be very difficult when someone like can't articulate. It's like, can't you just say why you want to do it? Like, why? Um, but I do agree that as a coach, you definitely learn how to parse this out very quickly and sort of figure out, okay, they really want Z, right? And they mentioned X and Y, but they really want Z. That can come out very quickly. You guys have anything else to say on that response?
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't necessarily have to be like a super like deep, emotional like this sort of thing. It can literally just be I like blowing off steam and chasing a goal because it makes me like my job sucks. I hate it, and I want to come home and lift and hit some numbers, because that makes me feel like my life isn't crap. It's like that's fine, Like it's just you want to come home and hit some
And I
numbers
also
at the end of the day. Like that's fine.
I also think, and to that point, I think there's something as coaches. I think this is something I've run into is people are often afraid of being judged for what the goal is. Like I want to look good naked. Like how hard it is for people to say that is sometimes like it's like pulling teeth. It's like so you just want to look good, like be happy with how you look. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Like you're talking to a guy that comes from a bodybuilding background. I get it.
Yeah. I literally had a client one time. This is one of the best consultations I've ever done in my life. This was years ago when I was doing some in-person stuff. He comes in. It's like, all right, cool, man. You said, you want to do X, Y, and Z, whatever, like why is this a priority for you right now? He's like, I want to have better sex. I was like, okay, cool. We're good. Let's go. Sign here. And it was great. He had a great experience, lost like 45 pounds. It was amazing. and that was the only reason he ever articulated.
Yeah, and I think sort of, this is the point about running a 3:30 marathon versus if you're running a 5 6 hour marathon now and you get down to a 3:33, did you fail? I mean, technically
Yeah,
yes if you aim for a 3:30, but like not really, right?
yeah,
Um, is also that all these goals and like all the numbers and challenges you see people do in the hybrid space, like deadlift 5 and lift run a 5 minute mile or some whatever crazy shit some people are doing, and more power to all those things. Like those are all great, but they're all arbitrary, right? And I think fundamentally we all have to understand like every goal, no matter what it is arbitrary, right? Is there any difference between benching squatting 399 and 400? Functionally, no, right? Like that's within like probably the variation in like the plates, unless you're weighing the plates on a scale. Um, so like, does it really matter? No, right? And I think trying to explain that to clients, and hopefully those that are listening to this, you can understand, like, to both yours earlier points, that like trying to understand, like, okay, I have this goal in my mind, and maybe it has specific numbers. Maybe there's a reason you have those specific numbers. Maybe it's goal oriented. Maybe it's, hey, I was at that weight in the past. I know what I looked like, and I know how I felt at that weight, so that's why I want to get back to that weight. Like that's valid reasoning. Like that makes sense. Um, and but also understanding sometimes the answer is just, well, I just want to get stronger, or I want to be able to, walk upstairs without getting out of breath. Like for me, a lot of times I know I'm slacking on my cardio when I have to like walk up the stairs to like where I parked my car in the parking deck. It's on the 6th level of the parking deck, and I get up there and I'm like huffing and puffing. I'm like, all right, Anthony, you need to be running more, right? Like it's very clear that like this is an obvious indicator of like where my cardio is. Um, and so like, do I care necessarily about what my time is in a mile? No. I'm 43 years old. I don't care, what my time is in the mile. Um, okay.
but you don't want to be miserable walking up the
Yes,
stairs to
yes,
your car.
correct. Yes, I would not. I would prefer not to be embarrassed walking upstairs.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfectly valid reason. I think that's awesome.
When I get up there and I show up next to the person that's walked down the elevator, I don't need to be huffing and puffing. I need like 50 feet. I walk to my car then, and they're listening to like the ogre next to them. I don't need to be the ogre. So
Yeah, like for me, like a lot of the reason I try to like keep my grip strength up and doing a whole lot of jumping and plyometrics and change of direction stuff. Like I don't play any like field sports or anything. None of that is relevant. I want to not get hurt when I take my daughter to the playground. Like that's the reason. Like I want to be able to jump down from like this 4-foot thing and not worry about my ankles and knees. Like that's it. But
dude,
that's
it is
a good
amazing
reason.
as you age how high a 4-foot drop becomes.
Oh, dude, it's horrible. It's like
It's
looking at that,
terrifying.
like, oh my god, and I don't want to be, I don't want to. If she's like, I want to do the monkey bars, like I don't want to be so weak that I can't hold her up. She's only 3, can't hold her up and help her do the monkey bars. It's just simple little stuff
Right.
like that. That. I feel like as you get older, like yeah, I like my performance goals and I have very specific performance goals that I want to achieve. But at the end of the day, if I'm 10 pounds short of my deadlift, but I can move around generally well, like that's really all that matters.
Yeah, I think the only thing I have on that is the arbitrariness of it. I like to say that outside of staying alive and reproducing, literally everything else is made up. Money is made up. It's all made up. So you just get to choose what you want to focus on and have no shame or no guilt in like, yeah, I just want to look good, right? Um, Even though culture might say like, oh, you have to have a deeper meaning for that. And I think, it's been like 20-ish minutes so far, and people might be wondering when the training stuff is coming, but I just want to really make a point of how important it is to at least have some kind of direction. I had a professor one time, he was a doctor, and he was telling us that a doctor's number one goal or number one job is to diagnose because you can't treat unless you diagnose. And I think of that with coaching. You don't have to have a specific goal at the outset, but you at least need a direction so we know what to work to. And especially when you're busy, because there's a lot of different things you can do with training. And if you don't know what your problem is and where you want to go, it's kind of, you can get overwhelmed with options. So this kind of goal setting discussion, I think, is just so important. And some people might not see that until it's said. So obviously we all understand that, but
Yeah. And it's freeing for clients too. Like when they actually understand, like, yo, it's not like the end of the world if you can't train like this person you saw on Instagram, like with volume and time and all this stuff. And like you can train and actually enjoy it and do the stuff that you want to do. People are like, oh, they have this preconceived notion of what they should be able to do, and it's like people should themselves to death, and it's like no, like let's build this. This whole reason you're hiring a coach. Like if you want to just go follow a program, just go follow a program, and it's not appropriate. Like we're building this around you, so yeah, that's huge.
Well, let's go in that direction. We're sort of where Justin was pointing us then. What are your training tips, or like what do you do with clients that are have limitations, or at least what are your general approaches? I mean, obviously it would be very much client specific, but what are your general approaches? Justin, we'll swing back to you here.
Yeah, for me, generally, it depends on what their specific goals are. Like we just said, we'll say if someone has like a running goal, mainly, we'll discuss what their strength goal is, or vice versa. Do they want to maintain? Do they want to progress? And from there, I'm gonna layer in some of the higher quality work first, depending on their goals. So say they or their schedule. So I don't know what you want to work on, but I mean, I've worked with people on 3 days a week of training up to 7 days and 2 days and things like that. But generally, trying to make sure they have a plan for when the training fits in their day, and then get an idea of how much time they have. Do they have 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 2.5 hours? And then I'm going to work to layer in some of the most important work that's going to get them to whatever their goal is. So if they have like a big three and a 5K goal, we're going to work, really make sure we get in the big three lifts and some secondary lifts to support those. We can do things like supersets. There's a lot of other things you can do to make the session very efficient, and then making sure we're at least hitting a speed session, because they do have a time goal, and at least one low intensity session. And you can even use alternate cardio depending on their schedule. Some people, hell, I studied for my CSCS on my indoor Wahoo kicker, because I was pretty busy. So I would do my zone 2 sessions with my textbook and study. So uh, get creative and just try to figure out what's going to work with the equipment they have, how far the gym is, and all those things.
Yeah, quality over quantity and intensity over volume. Those are kind of my two big things when someone's super busy. And by intensity over volume, I don't mean like every workout is like a 10 out of 10 effort. All it means is like, okay, if we only have X amount of time to train, we need to make sure that we hit some kind of minimal intensity volume appropriate for whatever they need. So that's going to look different from a 5K, from a marathon, for just general health, whatever. But making sure that the quality is there first. Like that's number one. And then from there, like you said, there's a million different ways to combine things and use like, density. And we can talk about some of that stuff too, because I think that stuff's really interesting and I use it every single day in my own training. But I do like to do things like leveraging pre-fatigue, which I know we talk about a lot, to reduce the amount of the lower intensity volume that we potentially need to do, eliminating pretty much anything that's unnecessary, like long, non-specific warm-ups and stuff like that people think they have to do, but really is just kind of a nice to have. Even simple things like exercise selection or exercise order, where it's like you don't spend a ton of time setting something up or like a ton of time changing plates or like all this stuff. Like even simple stuff like that, if you can shave 5 minutes here or there, like you can add up to like 15, 20 minutes of time saved on a session, which I know for me personally is just massive.
Yeah, no, I mean, what I do with my clients is a lot of those things you guys mentioned. The supersets is an easy one, and supersetting things that like make sense. Like, oh, let's grab an adjustable bench, and you can do like incline dumbbell bench with like an incline chest down row, right? Like, and it's the same setup. You just have to literally turn around on the bench. As is a silly example. Um, One of the things I'll do, and this is very much sort of dependent on the client and sort of the scheduling, but I've had good success with it, is I'll often, instead of scheduling for specific days of the week, I'll schedule like workouts like, 1 through 4, right? So let's say we're aiming for 4 workouts per week and maybe an optional fifth one. So I'll schedule like workouts 1 through 4 and I'll put them in, we use Training Peaks. So, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I'll go, hey, the goal is just to do these in this order over the course of the week, right? So you can do them on whatever days you want, but just keep them in that order, right? So maybe Monday something comes up, you're on call, you get called in, you got to go to the hospital, whatever. So you can't get in, but so you do workout one on Tuesday, right? You do workout two on Wednesday, and then maybe Thursday, another busy day, 12-hour shift, don't have time to work out. Cool. Friday you do workout 3, Saturday you do workout 4, right?
Yeah. And
And
even
I've
the
had good
extreme
success
idea
with
of
that with
that is,
people that have
yeah,
very variable schedules. That works pretty well.
yeah. And even like a more extreme version of that too, from a strength perspective, I've even given somebody like, here's a list of these 6 lifts that we need to get done. Day 1, you might do one of them and run out of time. Day 2, you might have a ton of time and do 3 of them. Like they have a weekly training load versus a daily training load. Is that ideal? Like, no. But again, we're talking about people with real lives here. And so get the work
Well,
done. That's what matters. Yeah.
I would argue it's ideal for them, right? And,
Yeah,
that's the thing that
absolutely.
I think came up earlier is that it's, and I think all of us would make this point. There is no perfect training plan, right? Yeah, it might be perfect on paper if you're, 20 to 22 years old, have testosterone in this range, can recover this quickly, right? All these, factors are, put you in a very specific category, and you have, all the time in the world to recover and train. Then yeah, there probably is an optimal training, general training plan, but most people don't fall into those categories. Like something's always different. So that's why, the benefit of having a coach versus just a free chat GPT training plan or whatever you're going to type in, right, is that we know how to adjust those things, right? Justin knows how to adjust those things. Mike knows how to adjust those things. I know how to adjust those things for whatever, your particular issues are as a client.
Yeah, I like
Hey,
to.
go ahead, Justin.
I was gonna say on your 4 workouts per week, I've done this with shift workers a lot or tactical athletes where I will give them like what I call buffer days in training peaks, where it's like feel free to move workouts here, and I'll try to front load the workouts kind of like you did, so they have some buffer on the back end. So very very similar. We just talk about it in a different way too. But another thing that I thought of while we were talking is kind of that mental emotional fatigue depending on someone's job as well. So if somebody wants to get stronger and run, they have a maybe they on Wednesdays or Thursdays they work a horrible long shift. Is the lift more relaxing for them? Is the run more relaxing for them? I'm going to try to put the thing that's going to let them decompress the most. um, for me personally, I love lifting heavy, but doing that after a long day of work is like it's not there. I'd rather go out on a long run and just like let my brain relax.
Why are all my lifts down 10% today? Weird.
I wonder. Yeah. And that brings up a good, that exactly like brings up a good point about auto regulation is that's basically the only way that I program anymore. Sometimes I'll use percentages for certain types of like density protocols or dynamic effort work or stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm using reps in reserve because if you're super busy, it's kind of unspoken that you're going to be pretty fatigued and you're probably going to have large fluctuations in your daily readiness. So teaching people how to auto regulate their training so that they're not putting themselves further in a hole by like doing that heavy lift after a long day and thinking they must hit XYZ arbitrary weight, when their readiness is down 10%, like that could potentially, set them back a little bit because now they're even more in the hole. So I tend to be pretty fast and loose with like prescribing percentages or weights with those types of people just because it's going to change so much day to day. And sometimes even with like, their running performance, for instance, like sometimes they might just not be able to keep a certain pace and that's fine.
Yeah, I'll oftentimes say like work up to similarly. I might say just like work up to a good set of 3 or 4 for today, whatever that is. Right. And I'll usually give a range on reps. Sometimes with like depending on the person, I'll give might give it like a range in weight. Like it's probably going to be in this weight range, right? Like thinking like the high end's like hey they feel great today, low end's like they feel like shit today. Um, and that way it's that way because I've learned some clients kind of need that, where they kind of need that type of actual like number. Other clients less so. I would say people that come from my experience, and you guys can chime in on this. People that come from like a powerlifting background, it's very easy to say, "Hey, just work up to a good set of 3 for today," right? Because they very much know how to auto regulate and they know how to get the most out of the lift, and their quality is usually always extremely high, right? It's the more, I don't want to say, I hate to say gen pop, but people that are maybe not as sort of focused strength athletes or like don't come from a strong strength background that I usually have to like give a specific number to. Like, hey, you should be at least hitting 110 pounds here, right? Or something like that. Otherwise, they won't push themselves enough. In
And it
that
depends on the
case,
person, because I've seen a lot of guys that I work with like always want to push themselves too much. And so I might
it's true.
intentionally undershoot their weight
Background.
range, knowing that they're going to go 5% over anyway because they quote unquote felt good and then they were going to ruin themselves. So it's like, if I actually want you to hit 405, I might tell you to hit top end 385 and they're going to keep going up anyway because, it's just 4 plates, just throw it on there, you know? So there's a little bit of psychology and kind of knowing the athlete that comes in there too. And some people in the opposite direction need like, yeah, you're going to undershoot this and every set's going to be 6 reps in reserve. I need to tell you a number so you can actually hit it.
I've played around with plus sets in secondary lifts too to measure kind of how fatigued somebody might be. So say they have a primary bench and then a few other man exercises, and then maybe we do. I'll give them typically a weight with a rep range. So like say whatever 60 pounds on incline dumbbell bench for a set of X to Y, but then on the last set do as many as you can.
And wrap
And
it, yeah.
yep. And then if they completely blow it out of the water one week, and then the next week they completely like only get 1 rep extra, that kind of gives you an idea of how the rest of the session went, and then maybe they're even fatigued going into the session.
Yeah, and it gives you a good idea of are they sandbagging or not, or is this weight even appropriate or not. And that technique, I love that because I use that too. It ensures that, well, even if you did sandbag, you got at least one quality set, And there's something to be like I did, years and years and years in a gym working with mostly Gen Pop, and it's like there's something to be said for that, like just giving an easy way to figure out, hey, we got some volume, and then we're calibrating your weight because you don't have a ton of experience and you might just not know. So we got to figure it out. And that's fine.
Do you guys, so I know we mentioned sort of like people that don't have specific goals. Let's talk about people that are maybe more either have very specific goals or they're coming up on a specific competition. So they're more on a timeline for their goals and they might find themselves very busy. Does anything change for you guys with those athletes or is it the same general approach? Or are there additional questions you guys would ask or push for?
For me, it's a little bit. I try to be a little bit more firm from a um, not like a typical getting on them type of way. But if they miss a few things, I'm just going to kind of check in and be like, hey, we've kind of discussed this. You've told me you want this. I just this is what we've discussed. You need to do to get there. So how are you feeling about things? And then if they're like, oh, I don't think I can do this workout on this day, then we can figure it out. But I'm kind of really asking them like, I don't care what you do. I'm here to help you, and I want you to perform well. But when it comes to like your actual goals, that's up to you, and I'm not going to judge you for changing your mind or whatever, but we're going to have that discussion on what you need to do to hit your goals. And then if you don't hit them, I'm not coming at you. I'm just telling you, this is what you said you want to do. And I'm here to help reach that, whether it's holding you accountable or whatever. Um, so I'm kind of a little more firm in that way, especially as you get closer to, depending on the goal and the person. If the person is one of the people like I kind of am, where they beat themselves up like that, then I'm a little less firm, but kind of meeting them where they're at. I mean, when it comes to strength and endurance things, obviously, especially closer to events, I'm looking more towards percentages and things like that, because if you have a specific goal for a powerlifting meet in those final, in that peak period, sometimes you feel like shit, but you have to still hit the number, right? Because what if you feel like shit on the day, right? You wake up, you slept like horrible or something. Um, so there's a little bit less of that on my end.
That's what you said about meeting the athlete where they're at. That's exactly what I do. It's like, hey, this is what you told me. This is where we're at. Like, I know you got this other things going on. Maybe this was a 10 out of 10 priority 3 months ago. Is it still a 10 out of 10 priority? If so, I will, as is appropriate, help them problem solve for it. Like, okay, well, maybe we can drop this, lower intensity session because it's not as relevant now. Maybe we can drop some assistance work on the lifting or whatever it may be, figuring out that, or, hey, sometimes like, especially with these strength athletes, some of these powerlifting workouts, you spend 2.5 hours on it when really you could get it done in 75 minutes if you were focused, right? Like you don't need 6-minute rest periods between every single set, like I see a lot of people do. So it's like, okay, are there other ways that we can make this a little bit more efficient? Are there gaps that are we spending 30 minutes warming up and we only need 10? Little gaps like that we can try to fill to make it fit. And if not, okay, then there's probably going to be some sacrifices made. You're probably going to be getting up a little bit earlier. Like, are you cool with that? And if no, then we need to recalibrate your expectations for your performance. If yes, I will hold you to them. But again, it's 100% in the client's court. Like, it doesn't affect me personally. I just want them to be successful in the way that they want to be successful.
Yeah, I'm always the most pumped when they are the most fulfilled and satisfied and happy. So I like to talk to people about, you might, for more of a gen pop person, your goal might be to enjoy training now. It's not always fun, but you want to generally enjoy it now. But for a very goal oriented person with specific numbers, what brings you value might be the goal. And in this period, it might just suck for a few weeks if something else comes up. And that's fine, but I want to make sure that's verbalized so they actually make the decision. Again, instead of kind of making those trade offs on the margin because it's not something that's come to the forefront of their mind. And so I'll just kind of speak that, like, is this worth it to you? Do you want to eat shit for this 3 to 4 week period while all this other stuff is going on for the goal? Or is that not worth it for you? And then if it's not, then we can have that discussion. Totally fine.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. I think there's definitely how much does this goal matter? If it, do we need to I think Mike, you said it, recalibrating the expectations for performance is often the sort of conversation that I'll have with clients. Like, hey, the last 2 weeks you've got in 2 sessions, right? And the goal was 10, right? It's like, okay, we need to, you've got a race in 4 weeks. We might need to recalibrate what you're aiming, what the goal is here. And sort
I
of,
think you said it before too. You guys were discussing the 330 versus 333, right? If your goal is to run a 330, but life's been crazy and you're on a 4, that might still be a huge win. Like, the percentage of people that run a 4 hour marathon on top of all the other life stuff, probably pretty low.
I certainly didn't do it. So I also, just as an aside, I know you mentioned it, I also went from 0 to 27 miles in 3 months. So I know, Justin, you mentioned your client did it in a year. I was like, I did it in 3 months. It took me forever it took me 6 hours, but I did complete it. So I do not recommend doing that to my clients. Yeah. So for those of you training for the Crucible, start now. Start early.
No, thank you. My Olympic lifting is not not up to par for that. I'll just put it that way.
Other things that have come up for you guys with dealing with clients that feel overwhelmed or busy. Maybe let's. I guess I'm glad I used that word. What about people that feel overwhelmed? Because I at least in my head, I view that as slightly different than busy. Do you guys view that as different? Maybe you don't. And if so, like how would you approach someone that was feeling overwhelmed?
I think it depends on if training is a relaxation method for them, then it's pretty easy. They probably aren't going to miss a lot anyways. They need the escape. If all training is another thing on the to-do list that's stressful, generally, broadly, my approach isn't a lot different. It's a lot of the same conversations, what's important to you, those kind of things. Um, as far as the actual nitty-gritty of training, if it is stressful for them, then I'm going to prioritize, like before I said, I'm prioritizing the highest quality things. Now I'm going to prioritize the highest quality things that are also the least exhausting for them, taxing mentally or whatever. If they have kettlebells and driving to the gym is too exhausting, can we use those some days instead, right? It might not be the most optimal or ideal, but it's something. So that's generally my approach.
Figuring out what they like to do, that's the thing. And then I always find clients, like, the more they understand about what we're doing and why we're doing it, they tend to feel a little bit less overwhelmed. Because a lot of people like hire a coach, like Justin, you said, like, you're like, I don't want to think about this, right? Same thing for me. Like, I do a little bit of my own programming. I kind of mash some stuff together, but like, I don't want to spend a ton of time thinking about my own programming either. I don't get paid to think about my own programming. Like I'm doing it for my own reasons. So, like it's you have to meet the person again where they're at. And I feel like the more they understand about the process, the easier it is for that buy-in where it's like, okay, yeah, I understand this. And to your point, like you said, like if it's a convenience thing and it's like, man, I, 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 I guess I have the time to drive to the gym and do this 90-minute workout, but really like I'm tired. Like I would just enjoy this a lot more at home. It's like you can get, depending on what their goal is again, but we can probably get a decent training effect outside of, very specific strength type goals or very specific performance goals. If you're, it's 3 feet on snow on the ground and you want to, run something, maybe that's a little different. But you got some stuff at home, you got some body weight, you got a pull-up bar, you got, some dumbbells or kettlebells or whatever. We can get a really good hypertrophy stimulus just from that stuff. So maybe we give you some backup workouts that you can do on those days where we know that maybe it's not the most, quote unquote, quality thing that we could be doing for the strength goal, but we're still supporting it and you're still having fun. And probably the most important thing is you're maintaining your drive and motivation to achieve something. And you feel like you're even taking a baby step forward is sometimes all you need to feel to actually keep your head in the game. So, but again, like knowledge to me, people understanding the importance of each session and where it's all pointing to is huge. But then also understanding like, hey, if it's not ideal, here is how this quote unquote non-ideal thing still supports your goal and is not a waste of time. And you can actually do it and not be stressed out about it.
Yeah,
No,
this is. I was going to say on the understanding why you're doing things. This is why I like, and everybody obviously has their own thing, but I like the way I do my check-ins. I didn't always used to do them this way, but I actually share my screen with Loom and show them training peaks. I pull up their training peaks. That way, if they have questions, I can literally show them kind of with the cursor, like this is how we're progressing this. Scroll down to their event that's like whatever away, and they can actually see. I just had a client a couple weeks ago. She asked about how we were progressing bench. And, I put some notes in there, but I guess, she wanted to know some more. So I was able to physically pull it up and be like, yeah, so these are my general thoughts about how we're doing this. And this is why we've done this so far. And then she was like, oh, super appreciative of that, obviously. So just meeting them where they're at as far as how much they want to know. Some people don't care at all. And myself and a lot of people at least want to know something.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'll say
the point of
sorry, go ahead.
the way I'll deal with it is usually I'll focus on kind of like Mike said on what they like. Like what do they like? What do they get excited about? The train days they get excited about. What days are those? I just had a client that sort of he's a client that deals with seasonal depression sort of thing, and they were feeling particularly overwhelmed with sort of like the training and what they were dealing with because they sort of picked something they were want to do triathlon stuff and it was new to them and they didn't know if they really liked it as we were doing it. I was like, okay, well, which of the workouts that we've done do you actually like, right? And then like once they told me that, I started the next week. I was like, all right, I'm gonna shift some things. Let me know how you like them, right? So the next week happens. I go, hey, how'd you like this last week, right? And very much sort of to Justin's point. And they were like, oh yeah, this was great. I really loved these all the workouts we did this week. They're perfect. I feel way more motivated this week. Okay. So now I've got a plan as a coach. Like, it was, yes, was it a little bit of an experiment? Yes, but a priori, I had some knowledge of what they were going to like. Then I could, just going forward and say, okay, I know what sort of the range we need to be in with what types of workouts they like. What'll still sort of progress us in a direction that they seem to want to go in. And, maybe they don't need to be doing half Ironmans, but maybe like a sprint try is fine, right? And that's okay per our discussion earlier about goals.
Yeah, I know for
sprint
myself.
Trials are super fun. It's a fun distance.
Yeah, it's short and it's over.
Less time to drown. That's the way I view it.
Yeah, exactly. My thing for myself recently is like I come from a pretty heavy strength background, but just with the way life is and some medical issues I got going on, like I don't want to be like training super heavy, like single at RPE 9, like this type of stuff every week. And like, yeah, you can do that. There's a lot of value in that if you're training for maximal strength, but sometimes that may not be appropriate depending on what you got going on. You got a million tools in the toolbox. I train a lot more with velocity or density or things like that that feel a little bit more manageable to me most days. And I know that it's still a very potent maximal strength stimulus when I decide to come back and actually practice at those heavier weights. So not everything, earlier I was talking about using reps in reserve, like not everything, the vast majority of things I would argue don't need to be, one rep in reserve or even two. You can get great stimulus for, especially if you're feeling particularly overwhelmed, staying a little bit further away and just focusing on bar speed and quality and execution and strict rest periods and those kind of things. You can get a great training stimulus, and it's for most people, definitely myself included, it's much less mentally stressful and it's a little more fun. And you can't. To me, that's maybe it's not priority number one for performance, but it's like priority 1.5. I think.
I just to make a point on that, maybe makes me think of something that I've been thinking about recently. This is something where I think social media or media as a whole can lead people astray. Where look up your favorite training on YouTube, or so and so trains so and so, and I don't want to name anybody, but like it's easy to bury anyone during a workout, right? Anyone. Like you could take the person that's most in shape, strongest MFer in the world, and you can, as a coach, you can bury them in a workout like easily, right? Like, okay, just, like take this weight, AMRAP it. All right, now AMRAP it again. All right, why did your weight, reps fall off by 5? AMRAP it the third time. Now you're doing 1/3 the reps you did the first time. Like you suck, right? And the person's toast, right? Like it's not hard to bury someone in a workout. And every type of those workouts you see on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, people get buried, right? Which is fine. Like there's nothing necessarily wrong with that type of workout where someone does go to a complete exhaustion or complete failure in a body part. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But so your point, Mike, and I would agree with this, that most of your workouts shouldn't look like that. I would say, right?
Social
Like I think
media is
most
film,
workouts you,
it's
you should be
produced,
fine by
right?
the end.
It's like
Yeah,
produced. It's like
you're
we're
trying to
coming here with
stimulate,
the
not
intention.
annihilate.
Yeah, we're coming here with the intention of filming this workout to get views and to get, it's not necessarily about the best workout possible. It's about something else, which is fine. That's not like a good or bad. That's just a different purpose to what, for social media, what generally you would film. Because good training is generally, in my opinion, not terribly exciting to watch like week in and week out. Like I'm interested in it because I'm a nerd, but most people, like, it's just not that entertaining. It's like, oh yeah, I squatted again and I didn't go to failure and it was the same weight as last week. It's like, cool. Like,
But that last
great.
rep looked a little better. The
It just
last
looks
rep
a
was a little
little,
better, so it was progress.
yeah, exactly. Or it's like, hey, I went for a run at, BT1 again. It's been my BT1 for 6 months. Like it's not sexy. And that's, again, it's like, what's the purpose of, are we trying to feel a certain way, or are we trying to get to a certain goal? Those are two very different things.
Yeah, and again, there are workouts where I'm fully in favor of, like, hey, let's really push, and I'm cranking my biceps to failure today. I'm cranking my arms to failure today. Like I get it. Like I have those workouts and they're great. But yeah, I don't, like, keep in mind that, like, that's usually what you're going to see on YouTube for the people listening or watching right now. Most of your workouts probably won't look like that. And
And when it comes to tactical athletes, especially, you
Yeah.
have to be
Oh
careful
God.
of making them too sore because they have to perform. I have a police officer I work with, and he texts me like, he's like, "Yeah, I had to chase somebody last night. If I crushed his legs, right, that would not be good." He texted me a couple weeks ago, was like, "Oh, the speed work we've been doing has paid off. I caught a guy when he was I wouldn't have been able to catch him when we started, and like I was able to catch a guy last night and get some drugs off the street." And I was like, that A made me feel good, but B, again, if I crushed his legs, that he literally had legs the day before. Like if I crushed his legs, he would have not caught that guy. There's no way.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the goal? Is the goal to get the absolute biggest legs possible at all cost, or is it to, like, be able to do your job well and not die for that type of person, right? Like,
Yep.
seems like an obvious choice to me. I don't know.
there you go. Well, guys, do you guys have any other topics you'd like to hit in today's podcast?
I think for me, the biggest thing we didn't really talk about with busy people is that all or nothing, like perfection mindset, where it can be really easy to say like, oh, I don't really have 100% energy, training's really important to me. Let me move this workout to tomorrow. But then like it gets moved again and never happens. And so during really busy periods, I like to emphasize like imperfectly complete is better than it never going to get done. Even though you had good intentions when you moved it, then it just continues to get moved and never happens. And I've done this myself too, so it's no blame, right? I've done this myself. I did this like 2 weeks ago, honestly. So
Yeah.
I'm super guilty with running. I'm very guilty. I'm like, I want to hit X amount of time. Oh no, the sun sets in less than that time, so I can't get the run in. Oh, too bad.
yeah.
Well,
So
Anthony,
like
why don't you just go out for a shorter run? Oh no, I can't do that.
Dude, I
when I
think
have
that's
someone who
harder
does,
for like us that have been training forever and like love this stuff and like really have high standards for ourselves. Like I do that. I had a ruck yesterday that was scheduled for, it was about 90 minutes and I got about 70 minutes done and cut it short for a few reasons. But it still kind of messed with my head. Man, I didn't finish the whole workout. Like in Training Peaks, the workout's yellow instead of green. I'm like, and it's like, bro, you've had like 3 yellow workouts in the last year. Like it's okay. First of all, that's not the standard, but it's like, do you think that you didn't get a training stimulus from that? It's like, no, dumbass. Like, it's fine. Go take a shower and go to bed. Like, it's just not that big of a deal. But I'm just bringing that up because I've. It's so easy to give logical advice to clients, but we're emotional creatures, and so sometimes it can be hard ourselves. And so for you guys listening to this, like, if you still are beating yourself up a little bit, and it's okay. Like your coach is probably not perfect at it either.
No.
and I like to explain to people, like from a coaching perspective, getting those imperfect workouts done is part of our troubleshooting process. Because if every Thursday they're only able to get the first half of the session done, and it happens 2, 3 weeks in a row, maybe the session is bad and it's not their schedule, and we can modify. But if they continually push it off, then I never know how much energy or time they have on a Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah. You learn very quickly if like a workout's too long for a client on a given day. You're like, they're always short. And they always, or if sometimes it's just an exercise that doesn't work for a client either because it, causes them pain. Like there's certain exercises that I just can't do. They just cause me pain. They've always caused me pain. Um, or they just really don't like them. It's like, they do this. They always do this workout, but they always skip this, Bulgarian split squats. I don't know why you would skip that terrible workout, that
No, why
particular
would you?
exercise, but yeah. Right. But like, it's like, okay, like there's no point in me programming them if you're never going to do them. Right. So, okay, is there a different way I can get a similar stimulus using something else that you're actually willing to do or at least try? And things like that, to Justin's point, do help us as coaches. Right. And yeah, there's certain exercises I know I ain't going to do. Right. Bulgarian split squats, they're on the edge. They teeter on the borderline. Sometimes I'll do them, sometimes not so much. Um, but yeah, I agree. This sort of like forcing yourself to get in. Sometimes it's, and it's kind of like swinging back to some earlier points. I think Mike, you made the quality issue. Is that sometimes it is like, as a coach, I want to be like, give me one quality set of bench. That's it. And sometimes like, I'll go to the gym with my wife on like a Saturday or a Friday and you'll finish the workout. She'll be like, how was the workout? I was like, well, it was okay. Like this exercise kind of sucked. This exercise was mediocre, but hey, like on this one exercise, I had 2 really good sets. Right. And I think there's very much, and then I think this is something that comes with perspective and age a little bit, or maybe just training age. I should say just age, but training age is that you learn to take those wins. Like, hey, my quality on those 2 sets on that one exercise were great. Yeah, my incline bench didn't feel great today. My shoulder was a little tweaked. It just didn't feel right. And my weight was a little off because of that. But hey, that dumbbell bench press, like I had 2 really good sets. I got really good, deep elbows, good stretch, really drove out my chest. Like, okay, great. So, and sometimes that's enough to make a good workout. Right?
Yeah.
I'll say, the workout was a success.
Positive momentum. If you skip the workout or put it off, you wouldn't have that. Whereas if it's like, I don't know what this phrase is, but like imperfect action, right? Even if it's imperfect, you're going to find a win in there if you look hard enough. And then you feel good, and then you're more likely to repeat that. And then you're more adherent over time, and then your results are better, and it all kind of snowballs. Whereas if you're always shooting for perfection and focusing on how you're falling short, it messes with your head. And then even if you are making progress, you might not feel like it, or you might not see it as much as maybe you could.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. I think that's enough for today. Justin, if people wanted to contact you or find you, how could they do that?
CHP's website has my stuff. Also Instagram, Justin S. Jones. Good places. Yeah, that's going to be the best place.
Mike, what about you?
Honestly, the same answer. CHP's website, and then Instagram at MJT Training. There's 2 T's in there. I didn't think that through when I made the name, but whatever. So that's, and I'm on Instagram every day. Like, I'm in the DMs and stuff, so people can always feel free to shoot me a message about whatever topic, and I'll usually get back to you within a day, if not sooner.
There you go. And I, of course, you can find me on the CSP website, CompleteHumanPerformance.com. You can find all of us there in our bios. Durazio Anthony, all one word, on Instagram. I almost never post, but I always check my messages. So if you want to message me, happy to answer there. I'm over posting on social media, I'll be honest. But I always check to see if anyone's messaged me. So there you go. And if you have questions for the show, you can again message the CHP through our website. We have lots of answers for you there. And you can look forward to hearing from us for our next podcast, whatever it will be. Mike, Justin, thanks so much for jumping on. Appreciate it.
Good to be here.
Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.